So welcome again to service, everyone. Welcome again to this spiritual practice. And I have been really interested in talking about fear for a while. And we've talked about it before, but it's always so great to revisit the topic and bring new insights to it. I took a workshop about 20 years ago where we had a letting go ritual, and people had the opportunity to express out loud what they wanted to let go of, passing the microphone. And you can probably guess what the number one thing people wanted to let go of was. It was fear. It was fear. And I believe that fear is crucial spiritual work. Some years ago, Deanna Barnett recommended this book to me. It's called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. And in it, she says, we fear beginnings, we fear endings. We fear staying stuck, we fear changing. We fear failure, but we fear success. We fear dying, so sometimes we fear living. But when we do this fear work, she says, we'll move from a place of pain, paralysis, and depression, to one of power and excitement. So I recommend that book if you haven't got it. And lately I realized that fears have ebbed and flowed throughout my life. The things that I was really afraid of when I was young, I'm not afraid of anymore. I don't know about you, but I was afraid of earthquakes. Perhaps it was the earthquake drills in grade school. I was afraid of telling people something embarrassing like I can't swim. I was so afraid that someone would find out that I can't swim. And over time, I realized there are lots of people that can't swim. So it's nothing to be embarrassed about. Public speaking. I used to be deathly afraid to give a talk of any kind. I'm still afraid. I still have fear, but I do it anyways. But I found that once one fear-invoking event resolves, then another one seems to take its place. It's almost like it's another lesson. And for some of us, maybe it's more so than others, but I call this free-floating fear. It's just fear or anxiety that's looking to attach itself to the next thing. And part of it is human nature. Part of it is we're given this this wiring for our own protection. Fear, in a reptilian sense, served us well and continues to serve us from doing stupid things like, going too close to the edge of a cliff and driving 120 miles down the freeway. Fear keeps us from doing stupid things, mostly. But what is fear? I think fear is a feeling, but fear is also a physiological response to a thought. And when that thought comes up that, oh, danger is happening, whether it be danger to my ego or danger to me physically, a process kicks in that is the opposite of what we were doing in meditation. This process, your sympathetic nervous system goes into fight or flight mode. We've all heard of that, fight, flight. And they say that what happens under stress and fear and anxiety is that the system will go to fight, flight, or freeze, or sometimes even fawn, which is basically, it's going to try to make friends with everybody. It's going to try to make friends and kowtow to everybody to try to make peace really quickly. Okay, I'll do that. It's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. That's an interesting thing to look up. But there's another word. There's an author, Buddhist author named Sherry Huber, and she adds a word to this fear response, and that is shrink. Fear shrinks our world. We begin to say, oh, I don't want to do that, and I don't want to do that, and sorry, I can't do that, and I'm not going to go there, I can't because I'm afraid of this, I'm afraid of this, and I'm afraid of this. Now, we could be afraid of so many things that we end up shrinking our world. Our world becomes smaller. Our world becomes smaller. And that's such a an apt visual image in terms of how fear uh, it needs to be dealt with because we want to be expansive beings. If everybody in this room is here for spiritual growth and personal growth, that means some kind of expansion. It doesn't mean shrinking. And the world is not doing us any favors nowadays by making us hyper vigilant with all of our scrolling devices, all of our doom scrolling. And when we do that, it can't be great for our nervous systems. Everywhere, most of the news, because it sells clicks and it is bad news. Because once again, we're attracted from a survival standpoint, we're attracted to seeing those bad news things. Because if we weren't, we wouldn't survive. There would be an accident on the freeway and everybody would go, "Ooh, I can't stand that." But instead, we have this instinct to look at it. We also have an instinct to help. So fear, hypervigilance can be helpful, but it can also be very hurtful because always being on guard is not good for our nervous systems. It's not good. So we have to do things like meditation to tone our nervous systems again, to get rid of this free-floating fear, free-floating anxiety, to kind of undo and unlearn the wiring that's native in our physiology. For example, if 99, I'm going to guess, 99% of the things, at least, of the things that I worry about never happen. 99% of my fears and worries, from small to large, never happen. Do you know what that's like? Is you're worried, oh, this is going to happen. Oh, this is going to happen. Oh, this is going to happen. But it didn't, but it didn't, but it didn't. And so, but how much of our time do we spend worrying about it? I remember once I had to give a big talk at work, and it was a big audience. And for 2 months, my fear was here. My nervous system was tweaked. And yet the day of the event, for some reason, I got more and more relaxed. And when I hit the stage, I did it. The presentation went great. Wonderful, right? But I spent 2 months in fear, all that cortisol, all those unhealthy toxic chemicals flooding through your system that are created from fear and anxiety. So this is definitely, I think, an important spiritual practice is to look at fear as a teacher. And once again, I'll bring up this quote from Tut, Messages from the Universe. What do you now fear, David? I got this several days ago. What do you now fear? What is fear now telling you? You're welcome, the universe. I love it. So that just says fear can be treated as an ally. It can be treated as a teacher. A little bit more about fear. Susan Jeffers, in this book, she says at the bottom of every one of your fears is simply the fear that you can't handle whatever life may bring you. And I remember when I was in my 20s, someone told me, David, God will never give you more than you can handle. God will never give you more than you can handle. And that brought me peace. A little bit more about the nature of fear. Eckhart Tolle says, fear is caused by too much future and not enough present. Likewise, Sadhguru often says, the past is a memory. The future is just imagination. So what about the present? If we're in the present, we can't have fear if we're in the present, because to have fear, we're basing it on the past, assuming that maybe something that we learned from the past is going to happen in the future. And then we use our imaginations to worry about it, to catastrophize about the future. So worrying depends upon us not being in the present. It depends upon us imagining the future. So being present is key. Another one is letting go. And I'm going to share a story about letting go. It's a brief story from the book Illusions by Richard Bach. You may have read it. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's such a short, easy, fun read, and still very relevant for today. So in Illusions, in the very beginning, he writes about once there lived a village of creatures along the bottom of a great crystal river. The current of the river swept silently over them all, young and old, rich and poor, good and evil. Each creature, in its own manner, clung tightly to the twigs and the rocks of the river bottom, because clinging was their way of life, and resisting the current was what each had learned from birth. But one creature said at last, "I am tired of clinging. Though I can't see it with my eyes, I trust the current knows where it is going. I'm going to let go, and I'm going to let the current take me where it will, because clinging, I shall die of boredom." And the other creatures laughed and said, "Fool, let go, and that current you worship will throw you tumbled and smashed into the rocks, and you will die quicker than boredom could ever kill you." But the one creature heeded them not, and taking a breath, he did let go, but he was tumbled and smashed by the rocks. But yet in time, as the one creature refused to cling again, the current lifted him free from the bottom, and he was bruised and hurt no more. And the creatures downstream, to whom he was a stranger, cried, "Look, see a miracle, a creature like ourselves, yet he flies." And they called him a Messiah while they kept clinging to the rocks. Ah. So that clinging is fear. And what the Messiah, this has a lot of analogies to the story of Jesus, the Messiah trusted in the flow of life and let go of that fear. So that's a great story. It also reminds me of the Eagles lyrics, "We live our lives in chains and we never know that we have the key." We own that key. We own that key. So I want to, the last part of my talk here, I'm going to share a few further ways of facing fear or thinking about fear as a teacher or an ally. And the first is simply to think about this. You don't have to face all your fears. There's some false belief out there that, oh yes, you really have to go through. And if you're afraid of flying, if you're afraid of heights, if you're afraid of walking on hot coals, or whatever it is, that you really have to go through the passage of conquering all your fears. Well, it just simply isn't true. We don't have time enough to do all that. But if there is a fear that is shrinking your life, if there is a fear that's ruining your life, then that's where you start, by asking for wisdom in terms of how you might address this fear. And Susan Jeffers in her book says that fear then becomes an opportunity to become powerful in this situation. It's using fear as an ally. That's why she named her book "Feel the Fear, but Do It Anyways." But do it anyway. I love that. So next idea is to break the cycle of fear by unlearning what we've learned. We've learned the habit of fear. So throughout your life, just imagine that there's a spot in your brain that every time a fear happens and something bad happens, there's this area in your body that's maybe called paranoia, or it's an area in your brain, and we keep adding to it. And something else happens, and oh, there's proof that we should be more paranoid, and we keep adding to this area, we keep adding to this area, it gets bigger and bigger. It's one psychologist called it a coex system. But what if we form another system in another part of our brain called pronoia? There is a book called Pronoia, and you don't have to read the book to benefit. You don't have to buy the book to benefit from the concept of pronoia. You just simply have to remember this. Instead of thinking, oh my God, something awful is going to happen, you switch. You switch over here to this new part of your brain, and you're going to form new neural connections. You're going to say, oh my God, something wonderful is going to happen. Something wonderful is going to happen today. Or, if this is more powerful for you, Esther Hicks, everything is always working out for me. Everything is always working out for me. If you like that, there are plenty of videos. If you Google search that, or if you YouTube search that, plenty of videos on that. So that becomes a very powerful mantra to create and rewire and unlearn this habit, this mental habit of building fear and paranoia. It becomes a way to stop imagining the apocalypse and start imagining heaven on earth, for example. So another one is The Work by Byron Katie. And if you haven't heard of this, or if you, even if you have, it's worth revisiting for this particular topic. For instance, if I am in fear of, let's say, people are judging me. People in this situation are judging me. They think I'm stupid, okay? For example, you apply these 4 questions to whatever that fear is, whatever that assumption is. The first question is it true? The second question is, can you absolutely know that it's true? The third question is, how do you react? What happens when you believe that thought, that it's really true? What happens? But the fourth question, most importantly, is, what would you be without that thought? What would you be without that thought? Not letting that thought have power over you. It's just a thought, because it may not even be true. There was a situation this week where I thought, oh gosh, surely something, you know, someone is thinking this, someone is thinking this, and they weren't. They weren't. I was just making up an entire story that wasn't true. And doing Byron Katie's work is a real helpful way to revisit this. Last 2 I'm going to share. Kill fear with love. They say that the opposite of fear is love. So if that's true, then bring particularly self-love into the equation any way you can. So how can you bring self-love into a fear situation? For example, I had a presentation to give at TiVo some years ago, and it was a brutal environment, very high pressure, really nervous about it. And I decided, what if I imagined that these people all considered me brothers, like brothers and sisters do? What if I all imagined these people as family? So what I did was, as they piled into the room, there was no Zoom in those days. As they piled into the room, I imagined each one being a family member, like a brother or a sister or a friend, and I imagined them supporting me, because the comments they were making, the small talk, they were feeling that for me. And so I decided to focus on the love instead of focusing on some technicality of my talk. And the fear went away. The fear went away when I imagined love. I think that's much more productive than imagining people sitting in their underwear, which is how many people like to approach presentations. It's just, use this one instead. I think it's really powerful. So the final thought in terms of facing fear, addressing fear, it's the most powerful one, and it goes back to Unity principles. It's the first principle, that God is all there is. God is all there is. There's a book called The Golden Key that's also based upon, when you're afraid, just think of God. Myrtle Fillmore said, all falsity must fall before the fact that there is only one power, God. And this is trust, isn't it? This is really trust. See, I think the flip side of fear, the antidote to fear, is trusting in God. First principle, And there was a movie I watched this week, Out of Africa. Ever heard of that? It won movie of the year one year. It was a long time ago. It's worth another watch. But watching it, they were lost in the desert. And Meryl Streep, the lead character, said, I think I may have gotten us lost. They were wandering through the desert for days, and she was leading this great caravan of people. And her servant said, God is great, ma'am. God is great. And she just looked at him and just laughed, and all of the fear just left her for a moment, because God is great. And that's what I'm really saying here. So if you're a person that studies unity principles, it's the first principle. And the fourth principle is actually, how can we get closer to God? It's pointing back. Fourth principle is using prayer and meditation to go get closer to God. So the fourth principle and the first principle support each other. So that fourth principle is, well, if God is the only, if God is great is the answer, then how do I magnify that? It's through prayer. It's through meditation. It's through communing with God in whatever way you commune with God, through music. That's one of the big ways I commune through God. Whatever way you commune with God, whether it be nature, whether it be affirmations, whatever your spiritual practice is, this is a spiritual practice today. This is a way of communing with God. It's toning your nervous system towards calm, towards anything but fear. So I'll close with this quote from Course in Miracles. If you knew who walks beside you on the path you have chosen, fear would be impossible. And I'll say that again. If you knew who walks beside you on the path that you have chosen, fear would be impossible. That's from A Course in Miracles. So I'm complete. So it is. And Amy, I'm going to switch over to you.
I think I speak for everyone here when I say that you are extremely calming for the nervous system. And as usual, I was just jotting down things while you were talking, and so I'm going to improvise a little song. Can't handle my fear. I just want some peace. The future is not here, and the past has been released, so let go, trust the flow, oh, let the current take me. We live our lives in our chains, while we are the ones that hold the golden key. Fear is a feeling, a response to a thought. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. But shrinking is all that I got, and the world becomes smaller when I succumb to my fear. And this is not my choice today. This is not why I'm here. So let go and trust the flow. I'm gonna let the current take me, yeah. Oh, let go and trust the flow. See, oh, we live our lives in the chains, but see, we are the ones that hold that golden key, yeah. That golden key. So I will drop my guard, not worry so hard. And 99% of the things that I worry about never happen from small to large. So let go, trust the flow, let the current take me, let the current take me. I'm gonna let go and trust it's a flow. Oh, I hold the key to set myself free. I will turn pray, I will meditate, I will tap and tune in to the divine and remember that God is all there is. Yes, God is all there is. Won't you know that God is all there is? And I'm safe, you're safe, we're safe. We can trust, we must trust in order to feel the love. Be the love, feel the love. I am the love, you are the light. Turn on the light, turn on the light, and know you are, I am, we are. It is all God, all good. Don't be afraid. A little pure improv there at the end. And I'm going to sing a song that is just so beautiful and perfect for this theme. This song was written by Karen Drucker, Doug LeBeau, Donna Michael, Eddie Watkins Jr., and Penelope Williams, which I think is fascinating. Everything that happens, happens for me. Everything that happens, happens for me. Everything that happens, happens for me. Everything is for my highest good. Do you want to sing that with me? It's nice. Come on. Everything that happens, happens for me. Everything that happens, happens for me. Everything that happens, happens for me. Everything is for my highest good. All of life moves toward my wholeness, pieces of the mystery. When I choose to embrace each moment, I am free. Everything that happens, happens for me. Everything that happens, happens for me. Everything that happens, happens for me. Everything is for my highest good. So hard to believe, but in this life it's true. And every moment there's an opportunity to create the highest vision that I can be. Everything that happens, happens for me. Everything that happens, happens for me. Everything that happens, happens for me. Everything is for my highest good. Let's do one more time, and I invite you, if you would, to put your hands on your heart. Because sometimes, like I said, this is a little bit hard to swallow, this concept. So give yourself a little grace, a little love, and a little faith. Everything that happens, happens for me. Everything that happens, happens for me. Everything that happens, happens for me. Everything is for my highest good.